a 27-year-old office worker. Right now, I'm living an average life, but I grew up very poor. Let me tell how poor. We often didn't afford to have dinner every evening. My mother worked until late at night and started again early in the morning, but it was still a struggle to make ends meet. So, financially and time-wise, we just couldn't manage to have dinner. The reason my mother had to work so hard was because of the debt my father had racked up. He ran away after making my mother his guarantor, so she raised me single-handedly while paying off his debts. That's why I have so much respect for her. It was only in the mornings, but I loved her cooking the most. Still, I was always hungry. Although I ate lunch at school, as the evening coming I got hungry. Even if I could smell delicious food from other houses, I had nothing to eat. In order to distract myself, I'd just wander around downtown. One day, as I was walking alone as usual, I saw someone wandering around with a sandwich in hand. Probably she was a high school girl given her uniform. She had long hair and a mole under her left eye. She looked beautiful to me, even as a child. But then, she was about to throw the sandwich into the trash can.
Hey, you're gonna throw that away.
I couldn't help but blurt out. She looked embarrassed when I suddenly spoke to her.
It's fine. I'm full anyway.
Oh, but it looks so good.
It's not good at all. Even if I'm hungry, I wouldn't want to eat this.
I'm really hungry. I'd like to eat it.
Then, do you want to eat it?
Really?
I quickly agreed, and she took me to a nearby park. There, we sat on a bench, and she passed me the sandwich.
This looks delicious. Thanks.
The sandwich was filled with delicious ingredients I'd never eaten before. I was so happy I gobbled it up quickly.
You eat really fast. Were you that hungry?
Yeah. I usually only eat twice a day.
What? Why?
When I explained my situation, she seemed very surprised. We parted ways that day, but the next day, I met her again in the same spot we'd met. She was wandering with a sandwich in hand again. I rushed over, but it seemed she wasn't planning to throw it away that time.
I was going to throw it away again, but then I thought of you and started looking for you. Do you want to eat today too?
Yes. I want to eat.
What's your name?
Kevin Scott, 4th grade. And you?
I'm Mia. I'm a senior in high school. Nice to meet you.
From that day on, Mia and I started meeting in the park to share her sandwich. Being able to eat dinner properly was an irreplaceable happiness. After about a week, the contents of the sandwich began to change.
Look, you said last time you liked roast beef, right? I've included some today.
Really? Awesome.
And you mentioned you didn't like carrots, but when they're chopped up small and mixed with mayo, they become really tasty. Try it.
Are you sure? Oh. You're right. This is so good.
Mia's sandwiches were so delicious that I even overcame my dislike for carrots. Initially, the ingredients were simple, but after I shared my likes and dislikes, the sandwiches started to reflect my preferences and became more various. The meal I looked forward to the most each day became her sandwich. Maybe it was the excitement unique to sandwiches, wondering what's in it today, that made it different from my mother's cooking. Mia wore the uniform of a prestigious private school in the city. Her mannerisms were elegant, and she seemed like she came from a different world than mine. I wondered why someone like her would be kind to me. Why did she have an unwanted sandwich in the first place? Looking back, it's a curious story. But I felt that asking might upset her and stop offering them, so back then, I just enjoyed them without questions. However, those happy days didn't last long. One day in the end of summer, Mia told me,
This is the last sandwich. I can't come anymore. I'm sorry.
I didn't know why she disappeared at the time, but now I think she probably went off to college and left town. The sandwich filled with my favorite things became the last taste of those times. I thought I'd go back to having no dinner, but before she left, she told me about a community center run by the local government. They offered free meals for kids, and I started going there every day. Though I no longer worried about hunger, saying goodbye to Mia was hard. I couldn't forget the kind stranger who shared her food with me. That experience made me realize the essential role of food in life. To me, the symbol of wealth and happiness became having delicious meals. Inspired by that, I wanted to work in the food industry, and studied hard from middle school onwards. As a result, I landed a job at a major company that does consulting for the restaurant business. Now, I could finally give my mother a break. With my first paycheck, I took her out for a luxurious French full-course meal. After joining the company, I discovered the vast array of delicious food in the world. It was a revelation about what it means to be wealthy. Yet, the most delicious meals are still my mother's cooking and Mia's sandwiches. No matter how many exquisite dishes I try, that hasn't changed. Now, at 27 and in my 5th year at the company, I've been tasked with my first major project. It is consulting for a new fusion cuisine dining bar. It targets office workers and offers a wide range of dishes from Asian to American cuisine. Moreover, takeaway options would attract lunchtime customers. We've put effort into the interior and advertising, but the key is the food. Finding a main chef who meets our high standards has been challenging despite numerous meetings with the owner. For market research, I went around trying out the food at nearby restaurants. Among them, one place caught my attention. It's a small sandwich shop, but there's not a single miss. Every sandwich is delicious. I found myself returning there more often than I intended. The food wasn't novel, but I always wanted more. Who could make such meals? The shop was run by a grumpy older man. The actual cook seemed to be in the back kitchen. Peeking in, I saw a pink apron but couldn't see the face. Then, one day, as I was buying my lunch, I heard shouting from the alley behind the shop. The owner was yelling at someone, saying,
"Honestly, you can leave anytime you want."
After scolding, he went back inside. Curiously, I looked at the woman he was shouting at. She wore a pink apron. Could she be the cook? Wait. She is. Surprised, my feet moved toward her. It was Mia, the same person who had shared her sandwiches with me as a child. It's been over 15 years, so my memory was a bit fuzzy, but as soon as our eyes met, I clearly remembered. She looked a bit worn, but her beautiful features and the mole under her left eye were just familiar. Mia.
Sorry, what was your name again?
It's me. Kevin Johnson. Remember? When I was in elementary school, you shared your sandwich with me in the park.
Oh my goodness! It's you, Kevin!
She remembered me too. Happy about the chance reunion, I invited her to dinner that night. I took her to an Italian restaurant where I had previously done some consulting work with my colleague, but as soon as we entered, she said,
I want to leave.
Why? This place is really nice.
I can see that. But it looks expensive. I don't have any money.
Don't worry about it. I'm covering it tonight. I had planned to treat her from the start, so I insisted on staying. Once we were in the private room, I started ordering the recommended dishes and drinks one after another.
Kevin, you've become quite something. It's like our roles have reversed.
After I finished ordering, Mia said, looking embarrassed. She was wearing a worn cardigan and jeans, and her hair wasn't very well kept. She used to dress in fine clothes in high school, but now she looked completely different. I wondered what had happened to her in the time we hadn't seen each other. Sensing the awkward silence, she started talking about what had happened to her until we met again.
Do you know Jackson Industries?
I do, it's a famous big company where I'm from.
That's actually my father's company. My full name is Mia Jackson.
What? I was surprised to learn she was the daughter of a company's president. It made sense why she went to a prestigious school and seemed so well-bred. She lived a life that many would envy, but it turned out the Jackson household was a cold place. Her mother had died of illness, her father was always with his mistress, and her older sister was always out partying. The only company she had at home was a mean housekeeper, and Mia said she had always been starved for family warmth. The sandwich she was about to throw away that day was made by the housekeeper. It was filled with ingredients she hated. It seemed to be the housekeeper's way of harassing Mia, who was in her rebellious phase at the time.
I didn't feel any love in it at all. I thought I'd rather starve than eat that, and then you came along, eyes sparkling, asking, "You're gonna throw that away?" After I went home that day, I felt strangely moved.
Mia realized that meals, which she had thought of only as something to fill her stomach, might have a different meaning. She wanted to see me enjoy eating again, which led her to start going to the park.
At first, it was the housekeeper's ones, but after a while, I started making them myself.
Really? I noticed the appearance and taste changed. So, you were making them for me?
Yes. You were my only place to belong. Trying to cater to your preferences and get rid of your dislikes became fun for me.
She found joy in cooking, and went to college to study food science. However, during her studies, her father's company went bankrupt. She had to drop out of college, and her family scattered. Despite everything, she worked hard, earning her qualifications as a chef and nutritionist. Nevertheless, her wasteful sister came begging for money, driving her further into poverty. Her sister ran off with a man, leaving her with all the debt. That's how she ended up living in poverty.
I got sick and couldn't work full-time anymore. Now I'm working at that sandwich shop and doing night shifts at a factory.
But isn't the treatment there terrible? With your skills, couldn't you work somewhere else?
I'm not that skilled. I'm just worried they'll fire me.
The story of being burdened with family debt and hardship hit close to home, and I found myself looking down. Yet, inside, I felt something more than just sympathy. Mia kept looking forward and striving hard, even though she was poor. Her interest in food and her actions because of it felt like looking in a mirror. I looked straight at her and said, "Mia, you mentioned earlier that our roles have reversed, right?"
True.
Then it's my turn now. I'll support you.
What do you mean?
She was puzzled, but I was determined. I had always wanted to give back to her. It was the time to do so. A few days later, I took Mia to that dining bar. I introduced her to the owner, saying, "Please hire her as the main chef." The owner asked her to make some dishes on the spot. After tasting them, the owner nodded appreciatively.
"I see. This is more than good enough."
After discussing with him, we arranged a salary that allowed Mia not to have to juggle jobs, and she was hired. As a result, the dining bar thrived. It's a stylish place, but the food feels homey. Such word of mouth drew continuous crowds, especially the takeaway sandwiches, which became particularly popular. Mia came up with new menus tailored to the clientele. That became a talking point and even brought media interviews to the shop. I was present during one of these interviews.
What would you say is the charm of this dining bar?
It's the thoughtfulness of the owner and Kevin, who consulted for us. Eventually, we'd like to provide takeaways that working parents can take home as gifts for their children.
Hearing that, I was struck by a realization. Mia looked at me and smiled happily. Even in poverty, one can possess richness of heart. My mother and Mia taught me that. I'm thinking of inviting Mia to volunteer for child support. I want to do everything in my power to continue delivering delicious meals to as many people as possible.